sense that somebody.
It's not a
holds it.
conservation easement.
Right, it's just giving you the rights to,
Okay. So easement isn't correct.
I mean, if you want, I can put, in parentheses, ROW.
No, I think just the easement is.
Yeah, and then, just a couple of typos. On the first page in the second last paragraph, he commented that the propane tanks on the plan were buried, and there should be a note, I think just put an
What's that?
Yep.
And there should
A.
be,
A note,
oh, a note to indicate.
yeah, just instead of B.
I think I was gonna say noted on the plan and I just didn't get
Yeah,
there,
well,
but.
it's just a typo. Then on the second page, in the third paragraph, the last line there, they would like to have the state fire marshal's office take out the two.
Yep.
Yep.
And then
And it should be, the apostrophe fee on the fire marshal.
the only other question I had was on the third page, where we're waiving, the last waiver there, we're waiving the scale of the building layout plans. But then, Rich, you noted that the printed scale on the plan was not correct. So
Right,
that's
you waive, you waive
different.
the scale.
Maybe what we should say is the 1 inch equals 20 scale requirement, because that, isn't that what,
Yeah.
what it says? So we waive the 1 inch equals 20 foot scale requirement.
Right,
And perhaps to say the submitted plan must be at a 1 to 40 scale with an accurate.
Graphic scale.
Well, I had something, on the first page that dealt with that. The next to last paragraph, Rich Mengy noted that. He asked that the final plan be printed, and I'm gonna say, to agree with the 1 inch equals 40 scale. And then cross out with the correct scale, and then actually.
Could you just say that, to agree? Or
To agree with the 1 inch equals 40 scale. And then on the first sentence, sorry, I'm putting this in backwards order, but which may you know the printed scale on the plan, and then insert did not match the bar scale on the plan. And then cross out was not correct.
yeah.
So I don't know, I think that might take care of the, or we can. I think it's, that waiving is fine at this point.
Okay, he clarified it.
Yeah. I had another thing on the findings. The third one down, the property was originally approved for.
Yes.
I was wondering if we wanted to change that to what's previously approved, for 15 lodging units.
That's perfectly fine by me.
And then, it seems like somewhere we should be saying that this application, I'm just gonna read what I've written, and then maybe we can discuss it. I'm thinking it should indicate what we actually approved, that now it's 15 lodging and accommodation units in the main building, 1 in the cabin, the conversion of the barn to 3 units of lodging and accommodation, and 1 unit of lodging and accommodation in a tiny house. So that we now actually
Yep.
have something on record that's indicating what.
Yep, that's fine, because that's, you know, the plan and the narrative show that, but it's perfectly fine to have that in
I
there.
think it's good, yeah, right. Yep.
So, can you give me that
I
wording,
can.
just,
Do you want me to write it? Hopefully you can read my writing.
if not, I can call you and
Yeah.
ask.
Okay, and then my only other question was, has the gross square foot area been recalculated?
Yes.
And is it less than the
It
14,000?
is, yes, I don't remember offhand what the number was, but, and I went through and did the calculation myself, not relying on him. And we came out well below the 14,000.
Okay. So that was an interesting thing that Nat picked up. So
Yeah,
his calculation exceeded what's allowed, but it was noted that he had included some area that is not supposed to be in the calculation.
Mhm.
but it's good for him to know
Yep.
what he's got for the future.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, so we don't run into the College Highway problem.
I had one more thing. First page, the first section, the applicant reconfigured the first floor by splitting into two one-bedroom units. Perhaps a semicolon, this added an additional unit?
Can do that,
Something, yeah.
easy enough.
I got one thing, I'm listed as both absent and present. And
You're
I'm happy
in a
to be
lot of
two
places at the
at
same
once,
time.
Yeah, yeah.
How
but
can you be in two places at once?
nowhere at all.
You're here in our hearts, Vicky.
Thank you.
I see that.
I was there in spirit.
That's nice to know that many people know that reference.
How come I missed that?
You don't need to, yeah.
But is there anything else?
Did Michael Hensley, just, it's not really, did he say it was okay?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, with the state.
with the state fire marshal's office doing the permitting, which I've contacted them.
The access was okay?
Yeah. And he was actually very positive. He thought it was a good setup and had no issues whatsoever, other than because the tiny house is the first one that's been done in the town. The fire department not have jurisdiction over it, and they didn't have jurisdiction over adding the 3 units in the barn. And so he wanted the state fire marshal's office to step in and do a building permit through the state fire marshal's office.
Okay.
And so, I've started that process. They need a letter from the town, it says from the town/select board, so I'm gonna do it, and if they don't like it, then I'll have the select board do it, but I'm just trying to give them some of the background of the project, so that they don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, and I think Michael said that they had been there over the years, and it was fine for various things.
Well, he's also thrilled because a lot of visiting nurses are there, so anytime they have to go, there's a bunch of nursing staff right there helping out with whatever
Oh.
medical issue.
Yeah, well,
Does that
that
actually
isn't
happen?
always gonna be the case.
Right.
And I was mostly concerned, I mean, even just with numbering, how do you know which unit to go to when you call in for 911? And, I mean, how is that handled?
It's gonna go to the address, and that's one of the reasons to bring the fire department in, so that they're now familiar with it.
Because there's like the barn, and who knows where the barn is, if they go to the, you know, that address, and it's like, well, you know, who's having the medical emergency, or, you know, and it's not, well, just having lived through that kind of thing when you, in Hanover with dorms and all, it's not really clear, unless it's made really clear. And so, did he have any concerns, like that those things
None
needed to be
whatsoever.
numbered or
No?
labeled, just gonna yell who's dying, or?
Yeah, that's, and both he and Aaron, did the visit, so it was not just Michael.
Wow, okay.
Do you see him? I mean, that might be something
Next time I can talk to him and,
to just,
Well, just numbering is you know, and knowing which unit to go to, especially in medical emergency, is like,
yeah,
yeah, oh, absolutely.
that's a key thing.
yeah. And it makes a difference if you're knocking on the wrong door at
And
2 a.m.
especially when you're going down to that barn thing, I mean, that's a steep drive, and
Yep.
if it's in the middle of winter,
Yep.
and they know they have to go there, they may need to,
Well, it's
have
good if they
somebody
know
sand
that
it
where they're
before they
going,
go,
well,
yeah.
that they're going there and not going to the other place and waking everybody up looking for the person
Well,
who's
that's,
in
yeah,
trouble.
if somebody from the barn is calling and you go to the main house, and the main house,
Yeah.
I don't know, no one called from
Yeah,
here.
and we don't know
Yeah.
those people anyway, you know, who you're
Yeah.
talking about, so it's
Yeah.
just a matter of setting it up so that they can but I wasn't there, so.
Well, can I get a motion to accept the minutes as revised? Nat, second? Vicky, you're not
No,
gonna vote, but I think we'll let Rich vote since he was made a full member of the meeting, so.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? They pass unanimously. So, what's up, Tim?
Well, I just want to know if we want to talk about this conversion stuff. And I think we should, we need to at some point.
Go ahead, tell us what you're
Okay.
thinking.
Well, I know David has a different take on it, but I tried to understand what he was saying, and I read this, how many times, and it seems to me that the zoning is really clear on the conversions. And, this sentence at the bottom where it says the intent of section 446 to encourage ongoing viability of Lyme's older buildings, all that means is that they're encouraging, allowing older buildings to be made into single-family dwellings or other things after.
Doesn't say that. It says other uses, not single-family dwellings.
Well,
And it says other uses in the first paragraph.
So I guess
I
what,
don't, yeah, but well, anyway, I talked to John Stadler, and he said, it's not even a question, I mean, that's.
Sorry, John's not
what I mean.
a board member, he's just a member of the public.
Right, but I just thought he might have some knowledge about it.
so I guess Vicky, what, and Nat, and Rich, I think
I mean,
the
it
concern
seems-
is on the zoning ordinance, page 24, where it talks about conversions. And the discrepancy that there seems to be between paragraph A and then the last sentence of that section where it talks about structures less than 5 years old, or structures that weren't served with wiring, plumbing, or heating during the previous 5 years.
Shall not be converted to any use other than a single-family dwelling.
And so, how is it that the zoning board interpreted and allowed 3 units in the barn building?
so.
And
very
how could they
reasonable
give a variance? To get a variance, you have to show that somebody
question.
else
Hardship.
can do something that you can't. I mean, it didn't make any sense at all.
Well, one of the issues is that somebody else could put up a same structure next door, brand new, and put in 3 units of lodging and accommodations.
I see that there's this whole like mumbo jumbo about lodging and accommodations versus dwelling units.
Yeah.
And that, it doesn't, it's got a very fishy smell, like what's
Oh.
going on. And, because there's no limitation for those people down there.
Yeah, well, that's
to live
an
there.
error in the
Well, it's an error.
zoning that the board should address.
Right, so lodging accommodations needs to be for transient people and,
And you need to define what a
What
transient
transient
person
person
is,
is.
how long the
yes,
stay
yes.
can be, that type of thing,
Yes.
but there is no definition in that.
Exactly. So they're saying that what the barn conversion was to lodging accommodations.
Yes.
Not to
Right.
multifamily home.
Right,
Or a single family.
which is one of the
Well,
reasons I
it's
wanted to.
not a single family, but but it's also.
It's
quote,
not a dwelling unit.
Not a multifamily either, because it's a lodging accommodation, and that's bogus, but, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because.
Vicky, you've been on here for a long time. I I just don't quite understand. What I'm reading this is it's like two parts. You could say structures less than 5 years old,
Yeah.
and then eliminate the or stuff, and then drop down to shall not be converted to any use other than a single dwelling. Or conversely, a structure which was not served by wiring, heating, and plumbing during the previous 5 years shall not be converted to any other use than a single dwelling.
Yeah, there's a preference towards single-family residential,
So,
it looks like.
Right.
but then the last sentence here, the intent of section 4.46 is to encourage the ongoing viability of Lyme's older buildings by allowing for their conversion to other uses.
Right, and that doesn't negate the zoning, or negate 5.
But was the intent then that this section was to allow the conversion of an older building into just a single dwelling unit?
Unless you
No.
waited 5 years.
I don't think that it was ever the intent for it to be just a single dwelling unit. I mean, I think that the whole idea was to use the old homes around the common to create, up to
Multifamily.
6 units, yeah. I
So
mean,
it seems like this needs to get cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
well, I'm
not-
looking
Yeah,
at, I didn't bring my zoning ordinance, so the one online is from 2016.
Oh, there's a 2024 one up there too,
Okay, why is this one on here then?
because there are multiple years of,
Okay, yeah, I just need to get that, so, but
This is the-
I haven't been here continuously since the
Mhm.
zoning was first adopted, and haven't been
Well,
part of
that's
all the.
not what I've
Well,
heard.
she's been 14 years old.
Right, so, yeah, so I can't explain a lot of this because I wasn't here, especially when Vicki Davis was
Yep.
here. A lot of changes got made, and
Mm.
I don't know when this was there, but,
But I
so.
think this might have been original.
Whatever, I think the intent was, we wanted more housing, and, but for other structures, they wanted to convert them into housing and not businesses.
Mhm.
So there was that preference to go to residents. But I don't think in this situation, it says no more than 6 units shall be permitted in any building. It's anticipating, just at the bottom, it anticipates that, conversions should be allowed for 6-unit structures.
Yeah,
I mean, that's.
even though A doesn't appear to allow more than a single.
if you go to site
That's
plan
the-
review.
Those, well,
But
no, that's
the
for.
criteria for A could have been satisfied,
Right, yes.
in which case you
So-
would put as many as you
So
want.
an old, no, you can only put up to 6.
All right, up to, yeah, you could
You
put
know,
up to
to
6,
six.
and as many as you wanted
Yeah,
up to 6.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but that facility did not have wiring, heating, and plumbing for
Right.
5 years.
Right.
Right,
Right.
so A was not satisfied.
A was not satisfied.
Right.
And your position is that this is not even a conversion?
Oh, no, it is a conversion, but my position is that the zoning is ambiguous, that very last line is encouraging other uses. And even in the first
But that
paragraph.
last
That last
line
line
is still
doesn't-
true, even if you
Yeah.
interpret it the way that Tim
Right.
is interpreting it. In other words, you're still encouraging conversions of old buildings. You're just saying that
Right.
you gotta wait 5 years after you put in all the utilities, which it specifically does say.
Right.
So I'm not sure how that last line, regardless
Well,
of.
I mean, the zoning board looked at it and they read it, and, the idea that the language seems to lead to, it's not allowing another use, single family, it says other uses. And so they're looking at all uses. And because if you go to site plan review in an older building that hasn't, then you basically get kicked out of site plan review because you can't do anything. No matter, if you have to go to site plan review and you're in a structure that does not have or less than 5 years old, or,
We can do a single unit, you could do single dwelling conversion.
they couldn't, because the use on the lot is lodging and accommodations, and you're only allowed one use.
So it's not a conversion then, because a conversion only applies to a single-family residential dwelling.
Doesn't he live there?
Yeah.
Lauren lives there,
Yeah.
so he's got a single family use.
It's an accessory use to lodging and accommodations. Everybody who does, Lockline Lodge has an innkeeper.
Right,
Right, you said
right,
that.
I get
Yeah,
that.
so, I don't
So
consider that.
it's not even a conversion. That's what my question, the original
Well,
question was.
I
Because it has
believe it
nothing
is.
to do with this, is what you're saying.
Well, it does. You have an existing building that has, it's a storage unit, storage right now. And they are taking and converting that to 3 units of lodging and accommodations.
Yeah, but actually it says shall not be converted to any other use
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
a single.
That's pretty
So that's
specific.
pretty specific. No other use.
Yeah,
Like no lodging and accommodation, just a single dwelling.
and I
So,
think,
Rich, I'm gonna suggest, I mean, we can pick apart this most recent zoning board decision,
Yeah,
but the fact is, I think it's our brief for this fall to think about ways to increase housing. Let's talk about let's find out what the town wants to do. Let's find out what makes sense to do in the town. We can then fix this wording. I mean, unless, I don't know, is the 30 days passed? I don't know if anybody wants to appeal this. I certainly do not want to appeal this decision.
No,
And
somebody
so,
could.
let's go forward and say, what can we do? What do we want people to do? You sent this letter.
But I think though, Rich, I think
Yeah,
it might be good to kind of clear this up, because somebody could appeal it, wanna get a legal opinion on this.
Right.
Because I don't see how
In other words,
I don't
it's a
see
bit
how
more
it
of
was
a rabbit
a
hole.
variance. I mean, it just doesn't seem like make any sense they give a variance
so I don't understand all the ins and outs. I think I share your intuition that this is kind of a dicey decision. I say, let's figure out what we do wanna do in town and how we wanna set things up to see if the town wants to liberalize this and make it more welcoming to lodging and accommodations and or residential, or not. I mean, I think what I've heard over the course of the summer is, we don't really know what the town is looking for. We don't know how enthusiastic the town is gonna be. If they're gonna say, come on, guys, let's get a bunch of housing in here, that would be one thing that would make this, we'd know how to address this. If they said, oh no, terrible idea, let's not have any more housing, we can then pursue fixing this language. But I don't wanna, it doesn't strike me as useful to spend a lot of time on this language, seeing as how we're intentionally opening up the whole question of housing.
So Dave, is there any potential here for litigation?
not that I, no one,
You think
there were no butters showed
No,
up.
but somebody else will want to do the same thing?
Well, I don't
And
think so.
we'll
I think
turn
that
them down
when-
and then we'll be liable.
I don't think so, because the project was very specific to lodging and accommodation. It was specific to a conversion, so it's an allowed use. So it's not a conversion to something that's not an allowed use in the district.
Except that this says no other uses,
Well,
except for that one little thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And when you look at what would be allowed on the lot, if you took down that barn and built a brand new one with the intent of putting 3 units in it, it wouldn't even have come to the board. Well, it would have come for site plan because it's
Site plan
added,
review, right.
but there would never been a variance request because it's a new structure and the intended use would be lodging and accommodations.
Because that's the, so it's not a conversion. It's
That-
basically
no,
what it
right,
would be.
right, it would not be a conversion, it would be a brand new building for that purpose.
So my question is, can the Lyme Inn go ahead now and rent rooms with, you know, hot plates and all that?
I don't see
and-
why not.
And have people live there?
As long as they're, you know, again, lodging and accommodations does not specify a time. It doesn't specify what has to be in those rooms.
Yep.
So I have no control over it.
And then, I mean, and then leaping down the road to Loch Lyme Lodge, same thing.
Yes,
That could turn into basically a multifamily development without
But
any
they couldn't,
review.
they couldn't have a residence in Lyme.
you couldn't,
Okay, well.
if I find out that someone establishes residency in Lyme,
Mhm.
then now it's that they're using that unit for, as a dwelling.
Mhm.
In that case, then I go to the owner and say, you're in violation of the zoning ordinance, and correct it.
By,
They have to, I would have to have a chat with town council to find out what exactly they want me to do, but, there is there's nothing in the zoning to go on beyond that.
well, all I'm
That's-
saying is that, I mean, I think we have a problem, at the, Breakfast on the Connecticut right now. Because it's very ambiguous, and it would be unfair to treat people at Loch Lyme Lodge or the Lyme Inn any differently.
I
And
have
I'll-
no
and I'll-
argument with that.
And, so, I think that that deserves attention, and, it needs to be clarified.
Oh, I agree 100% with you, but, what's in the zoning is what's there now.
So Dave, I have a question. If somebody builds a new building, they could put 3 units in it.
Yeah.
If somebody has a barn or any kind of building that's been there for over 5 years, they can't.
Right.
Okay,
They can or they cannot?
they cannot.
If your neighbor wants to put in a Motel 6, go for it.
Yeah, as long as he meets all the.
Right, as long as he meets all the requirements of the zoning, there is nothing.
Where
It goes
does
through
it
site
say
plan
that
review?
they could put in 3 units?
It's just the example that's being taken forward from the barn
You
situation.
can put up to 6, I guess. up to
I mean,
6.
if
Well,
you're,
in a conversion, but that's,
Well, no, you said that you could build a building from scratch and put 3 units in.
you put as many units in as you want, as long as the building conformed to the zoning.
Right, because because everything on that parcel is lodging and accommodation.
So like I
Oh,
said.
if it was lodging and accommodation,
Yes.
but you can't put 3 dwelling units on.
Right.
You
So-
could put 3 lodging units on your home.
The field across the street from you, you wanna put in a Motel 6, go for it.
The town has an easement on it.
Okay, well, the easement will prevent you, but,
Right.
Yeah.
no, the
So-
lodging and accommodations is very vague and doesn't say much.
Right, so that's the real crux here, is the lodging, yeah,
Yep.
that's what, it's confusing.
But I don't know whether we need to put this on the short list or the long-term list. I would tend to think
It's the way David frames it, it's a big fix, as opposed to calling this a conversion, which would just be a little fix. You could change the wording of that part A and accomplish something that was okay going forward, okay with housing promotion, and okay with Lauren. But the issue of any building could go up anywhere, so then that's all just gonna be site plan review.
Yep.
And there's not actually gonna be any way of pointing at zoning and saying, no, this can't happen.
Right.
Well, wait a minute,
For
wait a minute.
lodging, I mean,
That's,
For lodging and accommodations, right?
yeah.
right, I mean, that's always been that way. I mean, as
Mhm.
far as I know. I mean,
No, what we need to do is be more clear about what we mean about lodging accommodations versus residence.
So define them more.
Yeah.
You know, put in lodging and accommodation, saying your transient use no more than X number of days.
So that's just a definition.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's all it is.
And then if someone wants to change their lodging and accommodations into condos, then,
That's a completely different, those now
Then-
are
then-
dwelling units, and
It's a
that's a multifamily, and if you're gonna change it to let's say they wanted to condoize the 15 units in the house, the main house, or that could not happen, because it's over 6.
so, but at the Loch Lyme Lodge, they condoized.
Yeah,
But they're still being used as lodging and accommodations, they're not being sold as residences.
Right.
Well, what's the difference then? They're condoized, so they could be residences.
No, if I get if I find out that somebody is living there and is establishing residency, which is the basic way I'm gonna find out, then I will go to Loch Lyme Lodge and I will say you are in violation of the zoning ordinance because you have a lot that the primary use is lodging and accommodations, and you now have a dwelling unit, where you have somebody using one of those as a dwelling unit, and you're in violation of the zoning.
So it doesn't matter whether it's a condo or not, it just matters how many days of the year somebody's there.
Well,
Over
right now,
6 months.
no, it matters whether, the only way I will know is if they try to establish residency and I find out, not saying I would.
Residency meaning they get mail here and they
You know,
vote.
they, getting residency is the first thing they're gonna wanna do is get a post office number. And, they're gonna ask the post office is gonna say, well, we don't assign those, the town does. They come to us and say, we want a mail number, you know, an address. And I say, no, you can't have, there is no, you know, those are lodging and accommodations, they're not dwelling units, and
Got it.
you're now, or the property owner is now in violation of the zoning.
Rich, how does mail get delivered at the Loch Lyme Lodge?
Well, right now it all just comes to 70 Orford Road, and,
So they-
and we let whoever's staying in whatever
Filter
cabin.
through, yeah.
Yeah,
But there's, you know, registering cars, registering to vote. You know,
Yeah.
you could,
well, they use the 70 Orford Road address,
if they do that, or they could just get a P O box.
right, so.
But I would have no way, you know, again, I have no way of knowing that, so I have no way of enforcing it.
So it's things
So
like
that
the whole
doesn't sound right.
yeah,
No,
the whole
no,
transient
no,
thing
no,
is, it
it's-
seems like it's
So that,
something that needs to be
yeah.
figured out.
How, how do other places?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I mean, are you aware of Hanover having any definition for transient?
Oh, yeah, because we regulate, short-term rentals, so,
Yeah.
yeah, we get right into it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I would like to continue on with our agenda, but I think, you know, maybe we need to come back to this sooner rather than later. I don't know, I guess I'd be interested in,
Well, I see it as being really
Folks.
unfair, and therefore, I think it needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later, because it's not right to be treating one property owner and, with, allowing occupancy, unlimited occupancy, really, and not to allow the others. And maybe we want to allow the others to do that. But, I mean, at one point, when the Lyme Inn was going down, multifamily housing, oh, well, can't do that because, there'd be too many units there.
well,
And, so it got kept on as a lodging accommodation. But,
Well, it sounds like we need a zoning amendment, right?
yes,
For
we
town.
would, definitely to make it clear what a lodging accommodation, who the people are, who, or what their tenure is, to keep it within the bounds of a lodging accommodation. accommodation.
Do you know what Hanover does? Do you remember what they?
Well, we have a
It's pretty-
definition for
it's-
transient,
It's not very
Occupancy.
complicated.
But you have a time?
number of days, yeah, yeah.
You remember what,
I think it's like 30 days.
30 days?
Well, they're way over 30 days,
These people, oh, yeah.
these nurses that are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're usually there 6 months, and then if they re-up, they could be there for a year.
Right. So,
Well, he doesn't even have leases, so there's even no way to figure that out. Cause they're just there, you know, month to month, and, you know, nothing is even written. So that's very difficult to track down.
So, no, I'm not gonna say anything. I
Well,
would
but-
encourage us to follow the agenda.
Right, but, I mean, you're an owner, sit over there for a minute, how do you feel about this?
I haven't thought it through.
Right,
You know, to date, no one lives there.
mm-hmm,
But, and I don't expect anyone to live there, but,
You mean as a residence?
what's that?
You mean as a residence or as a? or
Yeah,
as a-
clearly as a resident.
But I think, if I remember correctly, if I remember, when we approved your whole thing, we specifically put in there that nobody could have it as a resident.
It's logic.
Yeah,
It was
put in there that nobody could actually be a resident.
yeah, but what does resident mean?
Well, I think.
So,
okay,
I
People are getting their
believe,
mail at
you
9
know,
Orford
my
Road.
memory-
Aside from the,
Yeah,
you're
so
getting very
I-
cold in the winter probably.
Yeah, right, so, I'm not really prepared to speak on this,
Yeah.
but.
Right, I know, but
yeah.
you know, it just, there's a
This is
huge
something
fairness
that
issue
I
that I
think
see,
we should
because you've been
make
working
house.
for a long time to try to get, not
You could live there year-round.
that,
Sure.
you know, no,
Right.
not those units, but certainly those units would be a whole lot more valuable if they could be used as more permanent,
Hmm?
for more permanent occupancy.
I mean, I suppose. I
But if
hadn't thought about
someone
it.
buys one of yours, buys one of the cabins,
Mhm.
there's nothing to stop them from insulating it, putting in heat, and using it. It could be lived in year-round.
Yeah, maybe they
I mean,
only
there's
use it
nothing to
seasonally
stop-
in the winter, because they like to ski and they don't like to.
But it could be made into a year-round structure, yeah.
So,
Well.
I do encourage you, Mr. Chairman, to continue the agenda here.
Yeah, I think maybe we should put this on the agenda for our next meeting, as well, but, I think we should move on, to the second item here, which I think we can take care of fairly quickly. We got a, letter in May. No. We got a response from the skiway, and it felt to me, we chatted about it, back in, probably July. And, David Kahn indicated that the, select board feels like they are, okay with what the skiway is doing. I think since something went out under the planning board's, heading, it feels like we should at least close the loop on this.
And let the select board take over.
They've already taken over.
I
They've
guess
already,
so.
Yeah.
They,
So, yeah.
yeah, they appear to be happy with things, and I'm not, personally, I'm not thinking that we need to open up, any more, exploratory or any information on this. I think that they've at least addressed the issues that we thought there was gonna be a major expansion, we thought that there was gonna be perhaps, nighttime and weekend use in the evenings, and since that appears that it's not the case, I'm,
So they're not doing the topless bar?
no,
Shit.
well, they didn't, they weren't asked, and they.
You gonna work there,
didn't
Kim?
indicate.
Yeah, I haven't got my name in. But they are doing a bar, probably. I mean, so-
Beer and wine only.
Beer and wine
But
is
that doesn't
during,
really
during the
get drunk.
regular ski hours.
Oh,
is
so
what
it's
the-
not at night.
So they're not doing anything at night other than, special events when they do them, but they're not increasing things, so. My personal thing would be that I would suggest that David and I put together a letter and thank them for responding and leave it at that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Just say we'll pass this along to the select board.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if they're already doing it, there's no point
I
in
know.
doing it again.
They've already done it.
I did talk to Dave Kahn, knowing that he was not gonna be here tonight, and specifically asked him if the select board still, you know, if they wanted the planning board to go through with it, and his answer was, I believe they do not.
Uh-huh.
And he's a lawyer, so he's never gonna give you a straight yes or no, but.
Well, it was, I think there was correspondence from the select board to us, asking us to review it, so maybe we should ask them to indicate that they're okay before we dismiss it.
My email with Dave, I felt, you know, that was clear enough that the select
Okay.
board.
He commented here in person that they'd already taken care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't think that we could add anything.
yeah.
So that's good enough for me. I don't think they need to respond in writing.
Are you here for that meeting?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember
I
him
thought that
saying.
was just the last meeting.
No.
I think it was
No.
two before that.
Couple
So
of
it was a
years
bunch ago, yeah. So, do you need a motion to encourage?
I would love a motion.
I make the motion that Rich and Dave work out a nice note back to the Dartmouth Skiway folks saying, thank you for your good information.
Okay, we have a second? All those in favor? Aye, good,
So,
move
yeah,
that along.
right, sounds good.
Do they think they're gonna get more skiers if they serve beer and wine during the day? It can't be positive for safety reasons.
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
just what
It's
people,
more fun.
I mean, ski areas are doing this, I mean,
Right, I
any
know,
area
but
you
I'm
go
just
to, they
saying,
have,
I understand, I'm just wondering if they think that it's gonna increase use and do they think it's gonna be more safe? But it's just wondering.
I don't know, there is a momentum behind it amongst skiway frequenters. And my sense was just to improve the experience. And so it was like none of the above. It
Well,
was
it's like you
just
should
to,
take away the lift ticket after they get their beer, you know?
well, they don't do that anywhere else.
Well, I understand.
That's right. So,
I mean, their idea was, you know, at least let them do what everybody else does. You know, make it into a. make
yeah,
it into-
personally, I don't enjoy having a beer and then skiing. I mean, I enjoy a beer perhaps after skiing, but.
Well, they
the
don't force you
skiway
to have a beer,
closest-
even at the skiway.
Yeah.
You can't see
Well, you
it.
see, here's your ticket, here's your beer.
They give you a breathalyzer test. So, you have to be 21 though, right?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that what it is in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So most of the Dartmouth kids probably can't drink and ski out there,
Right.
except
Well,
for
they-
the seniors maybe.
Not legally.
I can imagine parents taking their kids out, what the heck, let the kids ski and I'll go in and have a beer. What the-
Yeah.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that'll
I'll
make.
try to find my
makes
way
it-
back home.
Yeah,
That's a Sean problem.
yeah.
That's a short.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, that was the whole reason
Yeah.
we're supposed to review it, to make sure it wasn't more of a Sean problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, did Sean get to weigh in? I guess
Yes,
he
you
did.
did, Sean,
He did.
and,
Yeah.
I guess he did,
and
because that's
Scott
what we said to
Bailey.
Dave, you remember.
Yeah, yeah. And there's no night skiing.
No, I mean,
Why
there's,
not? That's
there's,
crazy.
well, they don't have lights.
Right, but that's crazy, everybody.
Yeah.
Light
That's
skiing.
expensive to set that up.
Skiing in the dark after a beer, that's
No, but I mean, they
When
could
it
put.
used to be wicked cold too, you
But
know,
you'd
we used to
think
get
they'd
below
have,
zero.
they'd have a lot more business if they had night skiing like everybody else. But anyway.
Well, let's
I
move
don't
on.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, let's move on to the master plan, to our housing concerns. And at our last meeting, we were talking about setting up some forum type meetings and getting some various speakers in. And Vicki, since you weren't here and since you are well connected to the Regional Planning Commission, we assigned you we were hoping we could assign you a responsibility to touch bases with the RPC to
Okay.
see if they could have a knowledgeable person come and speak to us and the public.
Do you know what date?
No, well, it would be during a regular planning board meeting that presumably we would have in a larger facility like maybe the Academy building. In hopes that we could also get people to come.
Okay. So a Thursday, second or fourth Thursday?
Yeah,
Okay,
And-
and
and it just
do
so
we have a
happens that
preference?
I would prefer not to do it on September 26th, because I'm gonna be out of town. But
So do you wanna pick an October, either of the October
either,
meetings?
either the 10th or the 24th works for me.
Well, we could,
Does
I mean,
everybody-
the 12th isn't that far, isn't so close up that,
Yeah,
I mean, you know, I would offer the 12th.
The 12th of September?
Sure. I mean, if
Well,
they.
we need to get, no, like, look at the date and how we have done zero in the way of outreach.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not possible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we need to, yeah, so
Okay.
I'm gonna aim for October, okay?
yeah, I think that's good.
And you weren't here, but I talked to Jonah Richard,
Uh-huh.
and he said, he would do it,
Yeah.
just let him know. so.
Okay. Okay, well.
So I was hoping we could, yeah, finalize what kind of other speakers we would want. I think it should be on subsequent nights. And although maybe we could have a couple people on another night, but I think the whole issue of how did the Regional Planning Commission come up with our fair share? And then also, what other communities like Lyme are doing.
Okay, those are the
if-
two questions.
And I don't know if anybody else has another question that, because I think it would be good if the RPC knows what we're wanting to talk about.
Yeah, no, they do. I'm sure that would be a factor into, yeah, somebody asked me who you get, and I said Olivia.
Yeah, I was one that emailed you.
Okay, well, Olivia, but I didn't know that I was supposed to be contacting them.
Yeah, and to speak to Olivia, it turns out she is in one of the Carolinas right now. I think she's working from there. But she said that she had a colleague who would be fully capable of coming up.
Oh, so you've already talked to her?
Because
Well, I did.
when you did your summary,
When I
you
did the
talked to
summary
somebody.
methodology, I
Oh.
ran it past Olivia to say, am I saying kind of the right things here? And she said, yeah, it's pretty good. And I said, would you be willing to come? She said, oh yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So, somebody would be willing to come.
Okay,
But you certainly could start with Olivia and just say,
well, I'm not, yeah, I'll talk to Megan, the
Sure.
director.
right,
Because I think that, we're a community without water and sewer, public
Mhm.
water and sewer.
Mhm.
We look at the numbers, and I think many of us are a little bit shocked at the numbers that they've come up with.
Okay,
And,
But that's just a suggestion, I mean, it's not anything, they're just suggesting that, they're saying, well, if you can do it.
well, it is, but, I mean, what is their methodology? Why are
Right.
they?
But it's still.
Why are they thinking that this is reality?
Right.
right, I mean.
But, and then, that kind of segues into some of the stuff that Nat has brought forth with the town of Sandwich, which seems like they're kind of on the cutting edge here.
Does Sandwich have water and sewer?
Limited,
Limited, okay,
limited.
yeah.
And so so that was brought up as, as an issue there too.
Yeah.
But it's, I said I was gonna try and get one of these guys from Sandwich, but then I did a little bit more exploration into the Sandwich
Mhm.
town website
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
housing section, and found these 3 documents that are PDF'd,
They're very
and went through them.
interesting.
And I thought that there was a lot of, there were a lot of parallels
Mhm.
that, and then in terms of, you know, I think one thing that had been brought out was that, if we got a HOP grant, and now, you know, this is putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but if we got a HOP grant in order to try and do an analysis of our zoning and try and figure out what we might be able to do, that they had sort of, that many of these consultants had sort of a boilerplate approach to it. They would just, you know, feed you back what they already.
Certainly Vicky's experience with those
Right,
guys.
right, but I thought that the approach that these guys had was actually extremely assiduous, you know, I mean, they went over everything. They pulled out certain things that really could only be specific to Sandwich, and made specific recommendations about, you know, frontage and setbacks and single dwellings as opposed to multifamily dwellings. So I thought that, you know, actually, it looks like at least one of these consultants, and I think this was Barnett Consulting Group, that did it. You know, they seem to not have a boilerplate approach. And then finally, I looked at the survey, and the survey I thought was interesting. I think,
Yeah, they were asking people that didn't live there.
they,
They had a lot of,
you know, they had, well, you know, only 13% of the respondents were non-residents.
Non-residents.
So 87% were residents. And 93% of the people responding were owners. And 97% of the people responding were in single-family dwellings. So there were only 3% renters.
I don't remember, did it say what the response was, the percentage of the town responded? I don't remember seeing that.
No, they only had about 200
Yeah,
total
193
responders.
responses, yeah.
So, and as a percentage of the town, that's even lower than ours.
Right.
Because we usually get 300,
Right.
or 300 and change, so.
Right.
And they have approximately the same population, although their population has been growing
Yeah, really fast.
really fast.
Yeah, I was
And
curious
their-
about that.
Actually, their housing has been growing fast, their average income has been growing fast. It sounds like that this town is just being invaded by
But it's right,
people from
it's on
Massachusetts.
Squam Lake, so, you know,
Right.
it's a whole different thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so that's a difference. We're not really in the same, but the last thing in the questions, I looked at there was an entire section of questions specifically relating to zoning issues and dimensional controls. You know, how would you feel about, you know, this change or that change? And giving a, you know, a sort of a pie-shaped response. And so they really went deeply into that.
Mhm.
They interestingly say absolutely nothing about the school
I know, that's,
and the
That's so
impact that
interesting.
it might have on the school. My hunch is, I started thinking about that and I said, well, you know, they probably had to build a new school already about 5 years ago. And, or 3
Yeah.
years ago, so they probably don't care about the school
Mm.
now, they're probably trying to fill it up. But
well, we don't know.
But that's one thing we could get if we actually, you know, we could push that a little further if we actually had somebody. But in going through this, the free-form answers were very interesting. But they're very tough to read. There was like 6 pages, single space.
Well, the Biden administration's presents a major barrier, did you see that?
Right.
Yeah, that was good.
That was.
Oh, what, that was one of the.
That
Yeah, I know, that was,
I didn't
I couldn't
get
believe that,
it.
the Biden administration was
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah.
It's Biden's fault.
Yeah.
It's Biden's
Well,
fault.
that was Biden's fault, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, they pretty much said almost exactly the same list of issues: NIMBY, zoning, the price of land, the cost of construction, lack of municipal sewer and water, and lack of public transportation. Those were like that is the litany, so it's really the same stuff as we've got.
And the other thing that they were saying was the lack of healthcare, which was interesting.
Yeah, that was.
And of course, we don't, you know, we're
yeah, we
in a
don't-
different situation, but it's interesting that over there, they don't have the healthcare, yeah.
But you mean, access to health.
access to health,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and the last thing I thought was very interesting was this schism that several of them seemed to point out. That although they felt as a community, they were very welcoming to anybody coming, they understood completely that the financial realities were not welcoming. And they weren't, and there was no sense that, oh, we gotta change this so that it can happen. We welcome anybody who can, by hook or by crook, get their way into this community, but it's not gonna be easy, is basically their attitude. So going, and the only reason I thought that was relevant is because of your set of questions, which really seemed to be aiming at how welcoming we are here in Lyme. You know, because you're saying, you know, well, what would these people do, how many, you know, what kind of accommodations would they want? And so the average Lyme person is gonna say, oh yeah, they're gonna do this and this and this, and it's all gonna be great, but the average Lyme resident's gonna be the same way, they're gonna be welcoming. But they're gonna say, if I have to, you know, pitch in another $1,000 a year you know, taxes to fund a new bond issue, then that's gonna change the tune. Cause you know, the realities are just, I mean, I just feel that the realities have to go forward along with the kinds of questions that you were asking.
Sure. And I just threw those questions out to sort of start a discussion here. I mean, what I think I hear saying is, I think we're gonna try to get some people in different groups in the RPC. Could we get Sandwich to come? I mean, we could invite them.
I mean, I could certainly go and ask somebody if we didn't feel like we understood well enough on the basis of going through this stuff.
We talked about having a developer. Did you say you spoke to Jonah Richard? Yeah, I mean, he's a really interesting person to talk to.
Yeah, of course, he's
Brass
Vermont,
tacks.
he's really Vermont, but.
Yeah, but he's brass tacks about what do you need to do to get stuff developed if you're gonna do more than one unit?
Right.
What do you need to do?
Yeah, and the other thing, to your point, I was looking at one of the things that Sandwich was saying, and they had this thing in there where it says, while the audit identifies barriers to housing in many forms, citing them does not mean the interests they protect are inferior to the purposes of housing creation. And that sort of ties in, you know, where they're saying, you know, we may not wanna change.
Exactly, you may not want to alleviate all these barriers. On the other hand, and the other thing that I thought was nice is their incremental approach. They said, you know, for the first year, just do these three things.
They were gonna just bite off
Yeah.
something
Just a
very
little
small.
bit, and see how that went, which I also thought was sort of nice, you know, cause then you could really
Right.
gauge the acceptance and I don't know, if
And they
you
have to
give it
get
a year, you can see how many applications go in for
Right.
whatever new opportunity the zoning change makes.
Well, and they have to get it past the town meeting too, so if they
Right.
try to do too much, it might not pass, or nothing might pass.
Yeah,
I found it
it's
kind of interesting that they had really deep setbacks, you know,
Huh.
for buildings, like, I can't remember what it was, but it's like 100 feet or something like that.
Yeah, they recommended dropping 75 feet off of one, or 50 feet off of one of
Yeah.
the, I think the setback from the main right of way.
Right.
And then 25 feet from the side setbacks. The idea was to be able to, they said they have a steep slope problem.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you allow these setbacks to get reduced, then you can position your structure without requiring more land. You know, so that was their argument there.
But they wouldn't let people build in the steep slopes at all, right?
No,
No, they
we,
have to have
we
budget.
don't, but you have to have enough
I mean, right.
to,
There-
I mean,
There's
they
something,
actually
they have a
lot size
15%
increase.
something.
Yeah, it was
or
a huge increase in lot size if you had 15% slope.
Well, that
makes
was to
it
find a
huge.
place that was flat enough, probably.
No, it didn't say that you had to have flat land in there, it just said it needed a bigger lot.
So they would let houses
So,
go
if-
on
so even if,
50%
so if you had,
Well, it looked that way from what the information was, I don't,
Yeah.
I
what
haven't
did
read
they add?
it.
They had like 100,000
It
square
was
feet?
100 square feet, yeah.
So that's like 2 acres, two
Yeah,
and a half acres.
Yeah, yeah, and that was like, whoa, it's crazy. It's not about the function at all, they just
I'd
said.
like to see Sandwich, it'd be interesting to see the town, see what
No,
it really is
just
like.
drive over there, it's really cool.
I know, but I mean, it
town.
would be interesting to see what they're dealing with, you know, what
Yeah.
the land is. Cause it's bigger than Lyme, it's 91 square miles, and we're I think 55. But the northern part of Sandwich is in the White Mountain National Forest. And then the southern and western part is actually Squam Lake. I think cause they have 3 square miles of water in Sandwich.
Hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see what, you know, where people are actually building and where they have to do it.
Well, so anyway, on the basis of
Yeah.
this, would you like me to go ahead and see if I can make contact with one of these guys on the planning board?
I guess the question is, what other, I mean, I think it'd be interesting, I think
Okay.
the question would be, is it really applicable? I mean, certainly right now, their zoning, it looks like they have, other things that we don't have. They have cluster residential, they have multiple unit dwellings, they have manufactured housing, mobile homes.
Well, we have cluster, right?
Yeah.
It's mentioned in the zoning,
I mean-
and there's
Oh,
that,
yeah, we have-
whatever that
But
thing
it's
is.
not a
that's down
separate
by
district.
Crossroads.
We don't have anything that's a separate district, do we?
No,
No.
we just allow
It's-
cluster.
Yeah.
We allow cluster in the commercial district.
No,
No,
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Well, allowing clustering, what you allow is to reduce lot sizes during a subdivision to allow clustering.
Right.
It does not,
And I will say that having been, worked with previous members of this board, this is not a very helpful thing.
yeah, well, the clustering is,
You mean it's too complicated?
It's too
Or
complicated, and the way it's written, it requires the resulting lot sizes to be so small that you don't get a useful building size. So, I mean, I don't wanna rehash it, I mean, I'm happy to rehash it.
You mean
It may-
because of the maximum
If you reduce.
coverage?
Well, right, I mean, reduced lot coverage and also reduced footprint. If you reduce the lot sizes, so you have, I've forgotten the numbers, 20 acres, and you wanna divide off 3 1-acre parcels and remain one big one. The 3 1-acre parcels are required to have relatively small building footprints, which makes them not terribly interesting.
yeah, so, you know, if you would look at the, you know, standard lot is, let's say, you know, along Route 10, 3 acres. You wanna do 1-acre clusters. When you calculate your lot size, you're calculating it off of 1 acre, which is going to reduce your building size down to a very small footprint.
Right, and a small gross floor area and all of those other things. And so, as currently constituted, the lot size averaging doesn't really help development, I'll say, as witnessed by the fact that I don't think anybody's done it.
Nope, they have, not to my knowledge, there's been none.
Right.
Seemed like an interesting idea, except, I know somebody who looked very hard at it and it didn't pan out.
And it's the number of lots you could get on the big piece, right?
Right, so if you
Yeah,
could,
you have-
that's the other issue, is that, you know, you can only subdivide, you'd have to look at the lot, say, okay, I can get from this lot, under the current rules, I can get 5 lots. So you can only do the lot size averaging to get 5 lots. Which means you're only gonna really get 4 new lots, because you still have the parent lot is one of those lots.
Right.
And you have to put an easement on your reduced, so let's say you had 4 lots, that instead of 3 acres, you're doing 1 acre. So you have 8 acres of land that you're being allowed to take away. You have to put an easement on that parent lot for 8 acres that you will never develop it. Because those are the acres that you would normally, or you'd never subdivide it, because you are.
But if you had the 8 acres, could you put up a big multifamily?
No, because you would be, well,
Oh, we're talking about clusters.
Right, the remainder lot, you could probably get a fairly large, whatever your lot calculations came out to, but the smaller lots, you're going to be reduced to whatever the, 2% of, or whatever the percentage in the district is of that.
Right.
But
Well,
David,
okay.
excuse me, if you had 50 acres and you had 5 lots, so you end up with 4, why couldn't you have 4 4-acre lots, 5-acre lots?
Well, part of the reason is the interpretation that this board said is that if you wanted actually to cluster them, you have to have little pie-shaped pieces, and the cluster has to be in the center. And
I don't recall that.
no, I
But
certainly.
I think that's the way that,
Yes,
the developer, his engineer went to it, that went at it. That was his, but I think, and that I think had to do a lot with road frontage.
possibly. I mean, there are a whole host of overlapping constraints that make it very difficult to build in Lyme, other than single family.
But in theory, you could have 4 5-acre lots on a 50-acre piece to cluster.
Again, if you had the road frontage,
Mhm.
Well, you've already got the road frontage, because you already have 5
right, 'cause you
lots,
can,
right? So you have the road frontage for 5 lots, so then you're actually getting, as you said, you're getting 4, because you have one big one.
yeah.
But then, in theory, you could have 5 4-acre lots, so you could have big footprints on those. Would that work?
Well,
Maybe.
again,
Maybe.
you're putting a lot of generalization into something that's lot specific. And without looking at a lot, it's really hard
Right,
to say that, in theory, if you had a big square lot
right.
On flat ground.
on flat ground, that there was no conservation districts, which flat ground, you got ag soils.
Right, so
That's-
it's possible, yeah. Okay.
So, when you take in, then do your lots calculations,
Right, so it is lot specific, obviously.
it's very lot
Seems like-
specific and,
So,
Yeah.
can we go back to who
Our
we're gonna
speakers?
invite, and when are we gonna invite them?
Yeah, so we had Jonah, Richard, the RPC, Town of Sandwich.
I'd love it if we could find somebody to come in and talk about what's necessary to develop senior housing, because I know that was a big interest multiple years ago. And I frankly do not think that terms of what we passed back then were conducive to actually building senior housing. So I'd like to,
But we still,
but I'm gonna ask that you not accept my opinions here, and let's see if we can find somebody else.
Well,
we still have, excuse me, I was just saying, we still have the problem with senior housing of what the state passed, right? So whatever we do for senior housing has to apply
Well,
to the whole-
everywhere in town.
everywhere in town, so that's gonna be
Well,
an issue.
so I think it's important, first off, I think it's important to find out what it would mean for senior housing. I suspect there's a lot of seniors in Lyme who might be, many of whom might be interested in some form of senior housing. So
Yeah, cluster, and maybe cluster. That would
cluster,
be the
something like
logical-
that, yeah.
Or ADUs.
I mean,
ADUs.
What I would suggest is look at what would work for seniors, and not necessarily if you decide to go forward with something.
That's age restricted.
Well, don't age restrict it, don't set it up just for seniors, and,
Yep.
then the state, can't come in and say, well, you have to apply this everywhere, because you're not,
That's fine by me.
but that's,
I mean, I think we were also looking at workforce housing and affordable housing and maybe somebody like Twin Pines coming in and speaking with us. Yeah. So I think that, I don't know about the senior housing, but I would tend to push us towards the Twin
Well, I think, you know,
Pines
it's,
or some agency that is, that holds on to the property and that it doesn't go out into the free market and, yeah, by the time the second person owns it, it's no longer affordable, it's,
Mhm.
so.
But I think David's right about senior housing. Don't make it even say senior housing, just make
Right.
it that housing that seniors might be able to use.
Right.
But don't say
And-
senior housing.
you know, it could be it could be that somebody develops something that's all senior, and they decide to make it age restricted as a developer,
Right.
so be it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they make it so that it's affordable to,
Right.
So let me make this proposal. Let's say we have 2 upcoming meetings, I don't know which ones yet, and see if we can't get, so it looks like we have 4 people, Regional Planning Commission, Jonah, maybe Twin Pines, and maybe Sandwich.
Mhm.
See if we could give each a half hour, something like a half hour. Just come, tell us about what you're up to, what kinds of things you think about.
Just a half an hour.
Yeah, and then, I mean, there's 15, 20 minutes of questions for each,
Okay.
and that would then, that'd fill most of a 2-hour meeting. You know, I bet they don't wanna talk for 20 minutes.
So
Half
should
an
I
hour.
be
Go ahead. Yes, by all
specifying
means.
in the note to Meg to the Regional Planning Commission that they only have 15 minutes to talk and 15 minutes to answer questions?
I think that's a complex issue, and I think we need to,
Well, that's kind of what Rich is,
So I was suggesting a
Yeah.
half hour for each.
right?
But that, you know, I mean, if we had 2 speakers in a meeting that goes an hour and a half, that would give us 45 minutes each for a half an hour speaking, 15 minutes of questions. These are squishy numbers, but that would say they don't have to come with a 2-hour presentation. We'd like you to tell us more than 5 minutes.
yeah.
You know, and if they got done in 20 minutes and they did a gangbusters job and we didn't have any questions.
Okay,
Go
well,
more.
I'm right now composing something to make,
Yes.
that's what you asked me to do, so should I say we're only interested in a 15-minute presentation? Or,
I'd give them up to a half hour.
okay,
Tell them we're allocating a half hour and some time for questions. I mean, I'm throwing this out, I think
so the
that's.
questions would be afterward to
Yeah.
all the panelists.
Right, the panels, and heaven forbid we have anybody in the audience, yes. And then the second speaker gets another
So
half
we're,
hour
so we're talking about having more than one speaker at,
in one meeting, yeah.
oh, I thought we were gonna do one speaker for each
I was
meeting.
thinking maybe one per meeting, but then again, if we could have 2 planning people go at the same time and then have Jonah and Twin Pines
Yeah.
at the same, on a separate meeting.
Right, I mean, I don't,
Or after, before, at a different
Yeah.
date.
I don't think, I mean, I'd rather have 2 people in one meeting, 2 people in the next meeting sooner than trying to jam people's schedules together to say, let's get the 2 planners together.
Yeah,
So, I
so we
mean,
could do, whoever can make it.
whoever can make it, and,
Nat, what do you think?
I don't know,
It's John's last
I would say a
name.
minimum of a half an hour
Richard.
for a presentation, then maybe
Yeah.
15 minutes, 45 minutes total.
yeah,
Would
max
be-
of
That would be still pretty trim for what these people have to cover, I think, but,
Yeah,
and we would have to know exactly what we wanted to talk about. But, yeah,
it's usually, gonna make it very tight to, be able to have some discussion, only 15 minutes of discussion, that's gonna go by very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like
Two questions.
20 minutes of talk and 20 minutes of, 20 or 25 minutes of questions, and, I mean,
Yeah,
I just think, trying to, I remember when we had, was it Beth from,
oh,
Yeah.
from the solar people?
Right. She had a lot of good information
Mhm.
and, a lot of questions, and the meeting went long. It was just one person,
Yeah.
so I think trying to put two in one meeting and limit them, you're basically not gonna get as much information as you would like, and,
Yeah, you're right.
I think,
I mean, and the other thing, frankly, I wonder whether sandwich is really worth having somebody come over. I mean, it's so different from Lyme, I just wonder. I mean, it would be interesting, but I don't, they could,
I mean, I
Maybe low
think the things
priority,
that they
maybe.
would be able to talk about is more the process than the specifics.
Okay.
The HOP grant
Do they think,
application.
do they think they
Yeah.
did a good job on the process?
I think it's a work in process, I think they're very proud of it. You know, they touched all the bases, and, you know,
I
it's,
think
I
that would be
don't,
good to hear.
I mean, one of the things that
I guess.
I just look at it, in 2015, they had a population of 1,300, and then 6 years later, they had grown by over 400 people.
34%, I think it's a 34%.
Yeah, and I'm going, whatever they're doing, I don't think that's what Lyme is looking forward to.
Yeah.
So from that perspective,
I guess that's what I
kinda-
was saying too, but.
I'm kinda, yeah, I don't know what to think, but I'm thinking that that would not be well received here. But, like you say,
But their
the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus they're going slowly, I mean, they're not really changing much right away.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I kind of felt like the consultant recommended a whole bunch of stuff, and whether or not any of it applies or not, I mean, Sandwich took the low-hanging fruit of, let's see if we can do duplexes, and.
Well, they were trying to take, a duplex was counted as a multifamily home.
Right,
So they're trying to have them treated like single-family homes.
right.
which the Lyme zoning treats them as single, you have a single dwelling and a multi-dwelling, multi is 3 or more.
Right.
So a duplex is a single
We
dwelling.
do the same thing, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
well, but they don't do that.
But Lyme, they're allowed, and other than, one has to be owner occupied.
Right.
So how are we gonna get
Yeah.
all these people? How are we gonna
Well, I'm
invite
writing
them?
right now
How are we gonna
to-
schedule them? Vicky's got the RPC nailed down.
Yeah.
Nat, do you wanna,
Well, I can just make a cold call to,
yeah?
the chairman and ask him who did your forum presentations. They did a community forum
Mhm.
twice
Oh, yeah,
and presented that forum slide deck,
yeah,
which is a bit trim, can be covered in like probably 10 minutes. But then I imagine that the forum actually included all three of them, so each one 10 minutes, that could be total of a half an hour, I suppose. The
Yeah.
survey one gets a little long, if you try and read all the stuff. But I can ask him who he would recommend, and maybe it's him. I've got the list right in front of me, there are 9 of them on the planning board.
Wow.
With alternates.
Who's what?
I mean, there must be a lot of alternates.
There are 2 alternates
Oh, only two.
wow, so they have 7.
7 members.
and 1 selectman.
Yeah, maybe you and I should do a road trip over to Sandwich, just to see what the town's really
Just
like.
take Lynn over there, it's a beautiful ride, and it's a really pretty little town. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's, it's small, very small.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I took Lynn, I'd take Tim too, so.
I was talking about
Not
you.
necessarily.
I was talking about you taking Lynn.
Oh.
And Nat knows.
He can sit in the back
Looks
seat,
like-
I don't know.
So could we get concurrence on who we want to speak to us first? I kind of feel like we should kick the ball off with the Regional Planning Commission.
Right.
Okay, well,
And
okay,
get
so
that
right
one
now,
set.
I'm saying, hi Megan, the Lyme Planning Board has asked that I reach out to UVLSRPC to invite a staff person to come to our housing forum on October 10th or 24th. Specifically, we're interested in a half-hour presentation on the 2023 Regional Housing Needs Assessment. We are contemplating having an additional speaker, possibly a representative from Twin Pines, or Jonah Richard, developer in Fairleigh, or a member of the Sandwich Planning Board. Sandwich has recently completed a hot grant. We would like addressed how did the RPC determine the specific housing needs for Lyme. In addition, we hope to hear about how other communities like Lyme, small population without water and sewer service, are responding to the challenge of facilitating the provision of the number of dwelling units to meet the housing needs specified in the regional housing needs assessment. We are unsure which speakers we will have on which night at this point. Look forward to hearing back from you about who on your staff is available to come meet with us. Thanks so much.
It might be nice to hear from them on other towns and then kind of open up not just Sandwich, but to think about other towns that may,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I've asked her, in addition, we'd hope to hear about how other communities
Right,
like
well,
Lyme
that's
Yeah.
are
what I,
responding to the
That's a
challenge.
gangbusters letter, thank you.
yeah, that's.
Is that-
Yeah, it was
so
fabulous
we-
letter.
maybe-
Pretty good.
I was gonna
while you're
ask you if you'd
sitting
write
there.
mine.
Can I just hit send now?
Yeah.
She uses ChatGPT, it's.
We can
I don't
wait,
think she needs it.
we can wait here until she answers.
I could
Yeah,
feel,
hopefully
I could feel the
succinct.
little haptic things going off on the table as she wrote.
There you go.
Okay.
But-
So-
But I don't, what do we think about David's idea of having, I mean, it slows it up, but having one person per meeting?
I
mean,
think
it
that's
seems
probably a
like-
good idea, because then you can
How-
expand it.
How are we gonna have 4 meetings, honestly, and,
Do we have a timeline?
well, I.
Before we all turn into earth or dust.
Right.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, you're not going to get this done and get zoning changes for March.
This-
That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
gonna happen.
We're not gonna have a master plan chapter is what we're aiming
Right,
So we
so-
have a year and, we have a year and 4 months, right?
So, you know,
No, we
the,
need a master plan chapter.
yeah, so
We need to
you,
document what this town wants for housing, and then we do our zoning changes.
Right.
So it,
So we have a year and
as
4
I
months.
think through all this, I do wanna accelerate these forums. I think it is good to have a couple people in each meeting. First off, having 4 meetings is gonna take till Christmas, most of the way till Christmas.
Yeah.
And I don't think any one person that's gonna come to us has enough to titillate us for the full time. I mean, let's see if we can't pack the room with residents of Lyme and get that conversation going, so that we can begin to get feedback about
I
what
don't
the
know,
town
if
wants.
the solar thing was any indication, we're easily gonna spend 3 months on this. We've already spent a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than that.
More than that, yeah, so, I mean, I think moving this forward, getting some visibility in town, getting the town talking about it.
So can we do 2 things at once maybe and come up with some survey questions? Or at least figure out what the structure of the survey should be, or?
No, because I think we need more information.
I think we need more information. I would jump on it after the first meeting, because I think we will start to get a sense of what people want. I think people will say, you know, people will come, please God, people will come to the meeting and they'll have something meaty for us to listen to. And
Yeah, the ones that will come though are the opinionated ones, we won't really know how to weight their answers.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, but they're the ones that stir their stumps to come out. They're the
No,
ones
that's
that are gonna
true,
stir their
but-
stumps when we, put something out for town
But
meeting.
when we say, when we actually put something in a document that they don't agree with, then the other side will start stirring their stumps, the
Well,
ones that were
that's-
quiet to begin with.
This is why we get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, right. I don't know,
I mean, yeah, I don't know, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Rich, but I just think it might be confusing to have two people at one meeting.
No,
I mean,
we have really,
It's not confusing, we've got got a very well-educated population, I think they can handle that, and it's on the same topic,
And-
so.
how long is the meeting gonna be for?
hour and 45 minutes.
yeah.
It's just gonna be one of these meetings and we're gonna
Yeah.
call it a forum,
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
right.
right.
But I
And the
think-
forum doesn't have any magic notification beyond the regular planning
All
board.
right, so should I try for these same 2 dates?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, maybe we can get a hit.
And then, you know, I guess what, communicate with David to say,
Okay, once we get
These
his
guys-
confirmation,
these guys can come. Tim, do you wanna call Jonah?
Yeah, I think we need to tell Jonah a date though, because he said just let him know, 4 or 5 days ahead.
Well,
So we can't,
we
I don't
can
think
do
it's
better
worth
than
saying.
that. We can say, could you be,
Either the 10th or
would it be
the-
impossible for you to be here on the 10th or on the 24th? If he says, going away on the 24th, great, can you come on the 10th? I mean, and if he
Well,
can't.
what if he
do
says he
either,
comes on both, he can come on both?
If he could come on
Then
both,
Yeah,
That's
once
great,
we see
then
who
we
else
have more
hear.
flexibility,
Right,
so
we-
that
right.
whoever can't make it on one of the dates,
Yeah.
he can fill in.
Mhm.
So the 10th or the 24th?
Of October. 7 o'clock.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, does anybody know anybody at Twin Pines? I mean, I know Andrew slightly.
No, but,
I could call him, make the same pitch.
sure.
yeah.
That was such a good note, Vicky, would you send it to all of us and we can crib it?
It was specific though, that's the thing, but sure.
I can take out.
So,
names
so
and
then,
addresses.
once we have this, done, let's see, when's our next? I guess if we can, have some dates by our next meeting, the 12th, then we can, Vicky, I put together, something that would invite the residents, that would go on
Great.
presumably the website and also on the listserv and
Mhm.
And I really,
public notices or something.
yeah, exactly.
I really don't see the need to send a letter to, in the postal.
Certainly not paper,
Yeah.
no. I mean, one thing that I think I do is, given this lineup, the announcements can say, we got two, count them, 2 hot sessions you need to
Yeah.
come to. And, then we can say, the 10th and the 24th,
Yep.
tentatively, we've got these
This is
people
our
lined up.
agenda, yeah.
And really important that you come and tell us, listen and tell us what you're thinking.
Right.
What you're thinking.
One other question. Would it make sense to have somebody who could speak to this actual RSA, talk to us?
Which
About-
RSA?
The workforce?
674:58 through 61, the workforce housing law. Because there's some, I don't know, does everybody understand what reasonable and realistic opportunities and what a facial test is and what a, an as-applied test is? This is all going through basically the requirements, the community responsibility or community requirements, and then the land use board process, and then the appeals process. And the only reason I'm interested in, because it helps you understand what at least the law says we're supposed to be doing.
Well, I think,
Um,
the way I understand it is, you just have to have the ability to have workforce housing, which we essentially do.
Well,
already.
then there's the comment that it has to be it doesn't have to be in all parts, but it has to be in the majority of the land in your town, over 50%.
What are you
Over
looking
the
at?
residential.
There's a, New Hampshire Municipal Association has a little, one
Yes, that
pager
one, yes.
on
That's very
the,
good.
on workforce housing law.
Somebody, I think you had, somebody had a link to that in,
You just have to,
Material.
if you just,
Okay.
do
You look
workforce
up
New
New Hampshire
Hampshire, or
workforce.
if you do RSA 674-58, don't do just the.
And you should all have this book that has
Well, it has
that.
Yeah, but the NHMA page is a lot nicer than that book.
Oh, this book
What is it,
is horrible.
674?
58.
Yeah, and NHMA,
You know, we can just look it up in the book.
well,
Well, I think
the
the,
book is the law,
is the-
this is just a summary,
yeah,
or, plain language instead of what the law is.
so,
So I'm just
do we
asking,
perhaps
do,
need to introduce this as to being the reason why we're looking at housing?
I don't think so. I think there's widely acknowledged, there's an urgent need for housing. We've invited some experts to come in and tell us about different aspects of housing,
Yeah,
so that we can know enough to begin to make some decisions. I mean, that's non-judgmental.
yeah, and people don't have to get their hackles up about, well, we're being forced to do this or something.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Right, I mean,
we're not, I don't think we're really approaching it from that standpoint.
And as
We
far-
wanna know that what we do will be compliant, but,
As far as workforce housing, I think we all agree that it's not gonna happen in Lyme without some kind of subsidy, so.
Well, originally, the board had done basically a housing inventory quite a few years ago and found that there were quite a few houses based on the assessed value that met that.
Almost 30, was it 30%?
It was 29%.
Yeah.
But,
Meant that, yeah.
due to the current housing market, I would suspect that number has dropped significantly.
yeah.
Possibly, yeah, that was based on appraisal,
That
right?
was based on appraisal.
Yeah, cause John and I did that, we
Right.
did the whole town.
I mean, you did a lot of work. I have to give you kudos for
We
that.
drove a lot, yeah.
Did you? Okay.
We
all
went
right.
to, we saw almost every house in town,
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
But, we looked at basically pulled out a vision, all the housing that was appraised at or below the threshold for workforce housing, and then you and John went out and looked at all of them to make sure that they were actual livable, that they weren't just camps.
And what about that trailer behind Fred's house there? I remember what and I think the other half of the workforce housing law is there must, as Matt says, in a majority of the town, be the reasonably economic ability to develop 5 or more unit houses, 5 or more dwellings in a building, and that's not possible in Lyme.
Well, if you have soils, it is, but if you don't, you can't.
Well,
what it
but
comes to.
I can't build a new building with 5 or more units in it. It's not possible. There's no place in table 4.1.
So the only way we can do it is to convert a building.
And that,
A building that already has
right.
sewer,
And-
water.
Yeah.
Electricity.
Right. Right.
So,
Which means
I-
it
I
has the
don't-
first unit in it, and then
Yeah,
with water and
right.
sewer, and then.
And so,
Okay.
I'm not so much hung up on getting somebody in here to talk about workforce housing. I think we do need to understand it and all, but we don't have
don't
to.
we
bring-
allow 5 units,
6 unit, up to 6 units.
up to 6, so you can build.
Well, no, that's a
Not in a
conversion.
not in a new building.
Not in-
You have to take an old building that already is serving somebody's needs and turn it into more units. I mean, and,
Got it.
yeah,
So what's the limit size that you could build a new one? 4?
One,
two.
well, two, yeah,
Two?
well, two,
Two?
one unit, and you have to, one has to be owner occupied. And that's a huge distinction.
Well, ADUs it does, but not in duplex.
I thought duplexes required owner occupation on one side.
I don't know about that, cause,
I don't think we talk about duplexes, like.
No.
No, we talk, well, it's not ADUs attached and
ADU,
detached.
right?
no, but ADUs, yes, but not duplexes.
Well,
Duplexes,
Do we allow duplexes?
I think
If
so.
an ADU, that's the only way I've ever been able to,
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I mean, our table 4.1 only refers to single dwelling, multi-dwelling conversion,
Right, but single-
affordable housing.
if you look at the definition of single dwelling, that in, or multi-dwelling is 3 or less,
Right,
or 3 or more. So, single.
So-
Dwelling single is a residential building that may include an attached or detached accessory dwelling unit.
that's just a single family with an accessory use. That's not a duplex.
But there's no other way of getting there.
So we don't allow duplexes,
Right.
is basically what you're saying, yeah,
unless it's lodging or.
no,
That's not,
no,
that's not a
not a
duplex.
dwelling.
That's lodging and accommodations.
Right, lodging, then you can put in more than, yeah.
well,
So
that's.
what is
not-
a multi-dwelling is a residential building and accessory buildings on one lot containing 3 or more dwelling units. So how do you get 3 dwelling units?
You can't.
So we have a definition for something that.
Well, you could have let's say you have a house that already exists, and you, it's large enough, and you split it up into up to 6 units.
Right.
But that's a conversion.
That's a conversion.
Right. Right.
But that's the only way you can get a multi is through conversion. If you look at table 4.1, it's multi-dwelling conversion.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't,
Right.
there is no other path to, you're not gonna build new.
Okay.
Right, or a barn if it's had heating and plumbing for 5 years, you know?
Right.
And same thing,
Because all barns in New England have had heating and plumbing forever.
yeah.
Is that what that outhouse
So,
is?
so we're waiting for somebody to make the outhouse argument, huh?
Yeah, I don't know, not me.
Well,
Well, doesn't your barn have heating and plumbing? Yeah, so you could do it for your house. You don't have horses anymore, right? Yeah, so there you go.
We can't because of the easement, otherwise,
Does easement cover your house?
the barn, yeah, covers the barn.
Or covers the barn?
well,
Well,
so let's kind of conclude here and summarize and conclude. So Vicky's got the RPC,
Sent out.
Matt's gonna talk to Sandwich,
I'm gonna,
you're gonna talk to Jonah, you're gonna talk to Twin Pines.
Twin Pines, yep.
We've decided that the dates are gonna be the 10th and the 24th. At our next meeting, I will forward, I added another sentence to the letter I had before, but I'll forward that to David so he can forward it to everybody. And then at our next meeting, we will hopefully finalize dates.
Yeah, okay, so I have a question. So what if none of these people wanna come and talk with us? We should still have a housing forum, right?
well, Jonah said he would,
Okay, what if he's in Tahiti?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
you know, but we should still do it, right?
I think so.
And
Well,
we,
that-
and then if.
The RPC for sure will do it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I mean, but if, hopefully they will. I mean, did we pay our dues this year?
As
And
far as I know, we did.
yeah. So, well, I mean, then they definitely should, because what else have they done for us? But
If they don't, then I say we start withholding the dues.
there you go. Okay,
That'll have
so,
a lot of effect.
yeah, so, I mean, but our fallback would be to start asking some of the questions that we would like to see on the survey and just start talking about that kind of stuff.
And
So
and I
we're
think
not-
we have started that with the goals
Yes.
and the things that,
Yes.
that
Yeah,
2 or 3 people have
Yeah.
put in for questions.
right, so we could talk about that if we, have, nobody to come on either of those nights
Mhm.
and start talking.
Yep.
And in fact, what we should do is release those questions in some fashion, so to get people really,
Get them tuned up,
Interested,
it's like,
yeah.
oh.
Didn't I just say this about 15 minutes ago?
I don't know, I'm sorry.
You did.
I'm sorry, well, anyway.
Well, we're all a little
You
bit
say it
slower.
so
It just
much
takes us
better
a
than
while
I
to
did.
catch up to you.
No, I'm
I
just
said
telling you.
something like, what about these questions?
You did.
Everybody said no.
No, well, no, I'm not, I'm just saying, what's our fallback if we're advertising dates and then nobody can come, or no
Well,
speakers?
Well, we're not gonna advertise until we know what,
Right.
I think we would like to be
Alright,
able to hype it up a
alright,
little.
You know, our next
Well-
meeting is like the 12th, September 12th, so that's almost 3 weeks. I guess it is 3 weeks, before the next
Yeah.
meeting. So surely these people will get back to us in the next,
Yeah, well, I expect,
And-
yeah, and if
and
not,
And
you
I'll
know.
touch bases with, if you guys could let David know,
yes,
and,
absolutely.
and then I'll touch base with Dave.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
maybe, what if anything could I send to David to send to people before our next meeting?
What people,
You folks,
what do we need?
I don't know, I'm just wondering if there's anything.
I think figure out who's gonna, hopefully get some responses by then and just plan out the forum.
Yeah.
Right,
And say, okay, this person goes first, this person goes second,
yep.
Yeah.
and then kind of tune up the goals, questions,
Mhm.
and then, I'd look at the second meeting in September, even though you're not gonna be here,
Yeah.
tuning those up a little bit more, and then, send them out.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think giving people a week and a half or something is perfectly.
Yeah, we'll find if you give them
More-
2 each time, they kind of forget about it.
It goes off the calendar, yeah.
When is the second meeting in September?
The 26th.
I gotta look at the calendar, I may not be here.
I'm not gonna be here on the 26th.
Well, there's at least
There you
3.
go.
I've gotta look at the calendar, we're supposed to go to Nantucket
Oh, nice.
for the 23rd, 4th, I think the
Well, we
26th.
better get all our
anyway.
homework done on the 12th then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because then also remember, as we get the November meetings, the second Thursday in November is Thanksgiving, and most people don't want to meet on Thanksgiving evening. I know I won't be here. And then the second.
Turkey coma.
Yeah, well, exactly. The second, and I make a really good
The
Thanksgiving dinner.
second Thursday is
No.
Thanksgiving?
No, that's the 14th.
Oh, I'm sorry, the fourth Thursday.
The second,
Right,
That's all right.
the second.
It's never been that.
second
Sorry, my
meeting
mistake.
is-
Second
He
meeting is the
celebrates
fourth
early.
Thursday.
Yeah, the second.
And then when we get into December, the fourth Thursday, second meeting is on the 26th, which is the day after Christmas.
Which probably won't happen.
Which, yeah, typically doesn't, and again, I won't be here. And I made the mistake of making plans for the first week of November. And I am going to be in DC during election night, so I may not be here ever.
When the country melts down.
Yeah, well, maybe I can join riots, who knows?
That's right.
Yeah, but
Hopefully we'll all be
you'll be
celebrating.
photographed and you might end up going to jail, but depending on who's the president, you might get or might not.
Well, the worst part is that I'm going to house sit for my sister, and she works for the DOJ, and she worked on some of the January 6th cases.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
And Hunter Biden, but that's,
Wow.
Hopefully we'll all be celebrating.
Yeah,
I am hoping, but anyway, I won't.
okay, well,
Thank you. Yeah.
is there anything else, or are we ready to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Actually,
Oh, no.
No, I just thought of this. Now, maybe I shouldn't talk about it, but I had a really good talk with Bill Malcolm a few days ago. I hadn't talked to Bill for a long time. And he essentially said that if the ZBA doesn't understand something in the zoning, they don't follow it.
Oh.
They don't follow it. And I think this stems from years back, not recently, but years back, the ZBA
That's a
Was
great
it-
policy.
was asking, I know, well, that's, anyway, so let me just, years back, the ZBA was asking the planning board for some input on, some clarification on things. And they got the impression that the planning board kind of blew them off.
Which
So
they
they-
did.
Yeah, maybe we did. We did have one joint meeting, though. years
Well,
back.
and I'm saying, Frank came to one of the meetings quite a few years ago with a list
Right.
of things, and it never went beyond that.
Right, but anyway, Bill and I both agreed, I mean, it was a very friendly conversation, we both agreed that it would be really beneficial if the planning board and the ZBA could have more input, more.
They would like to be able to come to discuss things that they find difficult to
Right,
resolve.
right,
And
especially
like,
because.
we
if-
can ask questions like, and when is a three-family a single family? That kind of thing?
Well,
Fair's
I mean,
yeah,
only- yeah.
Yeah.
especially
Only
because
River,
they have
right?
they have a lot of new people all the time except for Bill.
Yeah.
So.
And very limited people right now. I actually had one guy said, I wanna be on the zoning board, and his name sounded familiar, I said, okay, great, and I started doing a little background checking on him, and I couldn't find his name in any of the deeds or anything envisioned, so then, okay, that's interesting. So then I emailed him back and said, hey, can you give me a little bit of a bio background, how long you've lived in Lyme? Dead silence, I haven't heard a word from him since.
Mm.
Right, doesn't it?
I don't think he does.
He's gonna be a libertarian. But anyway, so the upshot of it is that I think it would be good if we could have more interaction with the ZBA. And it would help them and it would, because there is a negative I know in Bill's mind, I think there's a negative feeling about the planning board, which is crazy, because we should all be working together. And it
Well,
would
then
help
it's
them.
only Bill if it's all new people.
Well, right,
Yeah.
right, it's only Bill.
So Bill has a bad feeling.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, the Bill's, again, Bill has been on the ZBA for a lot of years. and-
20-some years. 25 years.
And then there's things that are confusing, and they are going to look at Frank's last list of things that they have issues with, and they're going to pick out a few of them to bring to this board, and when they do that, then they will reach out and try to,
Oh, great.
Okay.
but they don't wanna they think throwing a huge list at this board, say, here are all the things that are wrong with the zoning.
Well,
Is-
wrong,
is
or
gonna
just
be-
that they don't
If,
understand,
if,
they're
if
not
they
clear
feel
on it.
like they wanna have changes for this coming town meeting,
I
they
think,
need to, like, we need to have that sooner rather than later.
no, I communicated to them that the chances of being able to get changes done before, before the next town meeting, basically you have to have them done in January.
Right.
Well,
And-
okay, but if they have, suggestions,
Yeah.
like
And that's-
change this
But see,
or
I don't
make
think-
this, they
Well,
can
that's
give
where
those
they're-
to us and then we could possibly pull it off.
Right,
Yeah, but
but
from
that's-
what Bill was saying, he wasn't saying they want changes necessarily, they just want clarification on some of these things.
Well, what's clarification?
Yeah, I think-
How they understand what it means, just like
If they
this.
can't understand what it means, then it needs to be rewritten.
Right.
So,
Well, maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, I think this whole
Yes.
thing with the
we don't
conversion.
interpret, they're the people that interpret the zoning ordinance, we do not.
Well, they would like input anyway.
Well, there
Alright,
are
then make
things
that
that, I think, if, it would make it easier to interpret if things had some clarification.
Yeah,
I'll
That's
jump
what I
always
mean.
back to my favorite one is your ag soils. And look in the ag soil and how you, within 10 years it's been subdivided, you have to look at all the lots. What does, let me grab the actual language.
Sorry, I didn't
Didn't
mean
we,
to.
didn't we spend like
You went
years
round and
working
round
with
for-
John on that?
You went round and
For a
round, decided
long,
not
long
to
time.
make changes and said, oh, well, the board will just make sure it never happens. John's gone now, and
Right.
no one seems to remember that.
Oh, no, I remember working on that,
Right,
you know,
but the-
problem, and we never changed it. It got rewritten about 14 times, and then we didn't,
Right, you never.
no, never
But
got
if a lot is
changed.
being subdivided or has been subdivided within the last 10 years, is 25% area, which is what you can take out of the ag soils. This 25% area shall be applied to the parent lot. Well, if somebody is in one of the subdivided lots taking it out, and you apply it to a parent lot, but if the parent lot is
Right.
the lot that was before it was subdivided, so you're applying it, so are you saying that these people get 3% of that 25%, these people get 4% of that 25, there is no guidance on how you apply that, and legally, how are you going to say, oh, you can't take out the 25% because your neighbor took out 7?
Mhm. Well, that would make sense, actually. It's just like why we do those restrictions when there's lot averaging,
Yeah.
is so that people aren't using the same frontage 4 times, or.
Yeah. Oh,
whatever.
and,
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
get-
think that's
And that's
the-
maybe why we
that's the
didn't change
theory.
it.
right, but it's still, when you read it and have not been part of the discussions here,
Mhm.
you're saying you apply it to the parent lot, how?
Right, well, that's why we need to have more
Right, so this is.
interaction with the ZBA.
No, we
so
know
they
it's a
understand.
problem, and I don't understand why we didn't rewrite it with John.
I agree with you 100%,
So,
but that's,
and I think, I mean, I used to have, I think I threw away all that because, you know, it was rewritten like a lot. And I think I just threw it away, cause I had a stack of stuff that we weren't using anymore.
so anyway, those are the types of things where, you know, the board has to make and that's for a special exception, that the ZBA has to look at
Right,
that
right,
and trying to
yep.
decipher what the board, or what the intent of that is, and how to fairly allot that and do it over, you know, all the lots in a fair way that the town's not gonna get sued, you know? Those are the types of things that they would like to,
Right, well, we should think, I know, I mean, it's hard, cause we have only so many meetings, and it's hard to add all that.
well, that's why they are looking at doing just a few of the larger issues that they have.
Right.
And then let the board mull those over, and like I said, I told them that just due to time and how long it takes to, work through all the details and trying to make a zoning amendment, that probably nothing's gonna happen for this March.
Right.
Unless they could provide us with a suggested
Right.
word change or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right,
That
for
would be
simple
very
things, but,
helpful.
you know, like
Well, then maybe they know how that should sound.
well, I don't think they have, you know, again, their issue is that they don't know what the intent of.
Well, I think it's the same thing like I just said.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's not reused again and again and again. And
Yeah.
yeah, you do have to go back to that parent lot and see who's used it. I mean, and it's not to say that you're allocating anything, but if it's already been used up, there is none. The 25% is all gone already.
Yeah. But, you know, the question is then, you know, if you have somebody who comes in and says, I'm applying for the 25%, you're saying, oh, you're applying for 25% of the parent lot? Oh, that, we can take your entire 5-acre lot out, and then nobody else gets any more.
Right?
Mr. Chair,
Let's,
I second Mr. Niles'
Yeah, well, anyway, we
need to-
motion.
We need to think about that.
Yes, I mean,
We can
is
think about it.
Kamala talking right
Maybe-
now?
probably, well,
Pretty soon.
based
yeah.
on previous nights, no, they won't put her on until 10:30 or something,
Yeah.
but,
Okay.
but she might be.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, that's-